feel so, you have such lack of self-confidence, you feel so miserable, you want to pull everybody else in for your company. And therefore they just come in and take everything out because they're not white folk. But they're not giving you any more of a job than white folk are giving you. In fact, they're not giving you as many jobs as white folk give you. The non-whites robbed you even more. Yeah, you don't get anything out of them. Get out of this damn people of color. We are dealing with African people and people of African descent. This is yes. And those who may be of African descent and who choose not to identify themselves as such, we treat them as non-African. So we have these nations. They come into our communities and we let them in. You know, they wouldn't come in if we didn't let them in. They come in and we let them in. Take everything out. And then we cannot go walk into what? Their nation and do that. They're going to block you at the border. If they let you in, you're going to leave something there, baby. There's somebody who's going to come around and extort you. You're going to have to pay some protection money. Yeah, you're going to have to pay something. You're not walking out of there with every nickel they got. They're not going to see their children starve and die in the name of Christian love or some other stupid thing. I'm telling you. They walk 10 miles around you not to spend a nickel with you.
That's right.
They try as hard as they can not to give you one red cent if they can help it. Yeah. And therefore the African people are blocked from the markets of other people. Yes. And then we let them in and block us from our own market as a people. And consequently we are frozen out on both ends of the deal. And we wonder why the community is collapsing. We wonder why we can't take care of our families. We wonder why men cannot maintain responsibility to their children and to their wives and to their loved ones. It's no mystery. It's no big psychological, complicated issue. It's an issue of economics, an issue of the way we perceive ourselves and the way we relate to the world. And we can change that. But we must achieve an African-centered consciousness. We must achieve an African-centered identity. We must not give a hang whether people love us or not. We're not in the world to be loved by others. That's their problem. It's not ours. And our first effort there is not that of being loved by these other jokers, because they are loving us to death. We have the means to do this. And why are we in a buyer's market for our labor? The same reason why Africans are in a buyer's market for their commodities. Because we have what I call a vertical relationship with Europeans. Our wealth and our material earnings depends upon our relationships to Europeans. And therefore they can manipulate that relationship. But their relationship is not based solely on their wealth, and their power is not based solely on their relationship to African people. That's not a reciprocal relationship here. They do the greatest bulk of their trading with whom? Each other. Each other. They have what I call a lateral trade. They have capacity to trade with each other and to interact with each other in terms of community and trading block. Gives them a weight and leverage against others, you see. And this is what it's about. But the African nations are not really trading with each other to any great extent at this point. We as African people in America are not trading with each other at any point to any significant extent. If we were a major portion of the creation of our own wealth, we can then begin to demand the kind of prices we need in terms of trading with other people. But if we are not trading and enriching ourselves through cross-trade, through internal trade, through having control of our internal markets, then we are at the mercy of whatever other people choose to pay for our goods and our services. If we do not control something of value, then we cannot punish or reward other people. Because you can only have power when you have something other people want and something other people need, and you can control it and give or withdraw it based on your own needs and so forth. But if you control no wealth, if you control nothing of value, if you own nothing of value, you make your market valuable by not making it openly accessible to everybody. So to enter it, they have to pay a price. And to get out of it, they have to leave something, you see. And so no nation stands up and just let its borders remain open to be taken by every other nation. And ultimately, one nation or the other tries to capture some vital resources, some vital human resource, a mineral resource, or some other kind of resource that it can use as leverage against other people. But if you don't own some vital human capital, some vital material capital, if you're not even controlled of access to your own market, you have nothing with which to balance the power of other people. And they therefore will use you up and eat you up and eat you alive. When you study then the success and the achievement of other ethnic groups in this country, you will see that they achieved it not by loving anybody, not even by pursuing integration as their ultimate goal, but by identifying with it themselves. I'm going to invite you to read Thomas Sowell's Ethnic America. I don't recommend hardly anything else he writes. It was amazing he wrote such a book and came out the way he did. But particularly read the story of the Irish. Read that. Read this situation. It's of such, I think it's so valuable. Because sometimes you see we are so close to our own problems as black people. It's difficult for us to separate our emotions from objectivity and objective knowledge. And sometimes if you want to come to understand why there's such criminality and violence and why there's such social disorganization and so forth in the black community, it pays you not to study black people first. Because see, black people are not the only people who are violent. Black people are not the only people who were the majority in prison. Black people were not the only people who came from a peasant background and were taken into the urban centers of the world. Not by a long shot. Okay? Prisons were invented before we were even out of slavery. Yeah. The first prisons in the world in America were built right here before 45, 50 years before black people were even out of slavery. They were building prisons. And then it's interesting that when the whites were building prisons for themselves, they saw prisons as reformatories. And they carefully designed the prisons. You should get into the old prison literature and see how they tried to design the walls, the architecture, and everything was perfectly designed to try to rehabilitate these people and bring about their rehabilitation. You should go back and look at all of these parks. You look at Central Park. If you read the history of Central Park was a social rehabilitation project. They determined what trees they would plant in terms of what effect they would have on people's minds. How they would plant them and how they would place them. And I'm talking about white folk, because white folk were there yet. You can't imagine the kind of planting. They tried to plan the cities and lay out the streets and build the whole thing in a way to shape the consciousness of people, you see. Because America was being inundated by immigrants and foreigners around the 1830s. And at this point, the urban areas were growing at an extremely rapid pace. Prior to that time, America was a rural nation. And at this point then, America began to become an urban nation. And the very urbanization began to threaten the integrity of the country. America did not know how to deal with these urban masses. And these were white masses. This isn't the first time the cities have been seen as an endangerment to the life of the nation. The first time they were seen as an endangerment to the nation were when the Irish and the Italians and the other ones were inhabiting these cities. And do you know how social work came into being? It came into being to deal with the orphans of white folk and the broken families